Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the District of Sechelt's regular meeting of Council for Wednesday, March 21st. It's 7 p.m. We have an agenda in front of us. I have a conflict with item 10.3, this evening's agenda, so I will relinquish the chair to Councillor Mueller when we come to that item. If anyone else has a conflict, would they please declare? Seeing none, are there any changes or amendments to the agenda? None. So I look to an adoption, please. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. Our first appointment tonight is Mr. Doug Spaney. Is he here in the room? Will you come forward to the presenter's table, please? And I'll remind you, we do have a full agenda, so we'll keep you to your 10 minutes. Including time for questions from council. So if you have a seat, I'll turn on your mic and we'll get started. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much. This is Leah McNeil, and Leah is the harbor manager at the floatplane dock in Sechelt. And together we're trying to put together a plan which may already be in the works with the district, we're not sure, on what is happening with the harbor area. As you know, the existing facility has been sold, the pub, and there's a question of putting a floatplane facility. The question we have, would the district entertain moving a floatplane facility to a government dock with a possible expansion of the dock for floatplane service, as well as accommodating more boat traffic. And I think I've submitted a plan which shows a few different items. One is the list of the existing lease boundaries of the property and the way it exists now with the wharf. And page 11. I think that's page 11 on your agenda.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's it would be that one there, and it shows the legal lease boundaries with the extension. You've already, the existing wharf has exceeded the boundaries of the lease that has been built. So on the other page 12, I drew up a proposal based on what could possibly happen there with a floating breakwater dock and a future dock, and then an extension of a marina dock, which would extend the boundaries. That would the issue would be as to how would the district go about expanding their dock boundaries on a lease like that? Because I'm not sure of the actual legal ownership of this property with the district. As I was told, there was a Section 25 where the federal government had given these docks to various municipalities, and I don't know if the Sechelt has actually taken that up. So I don't know your legal position on ownership of that dock. But the request at this point would be to improve that area, deal with the First Nations on their best practices for dock management and how docks are built for minimizing the impact of a new dock, and dealing with them on the boundaries, and to see if council will support an activity like that where the dock would be expanded and there would possibly be a location for a small office for Harbour Air, or I know it can't go to a specific user, it has to go to general public with guidelines as a design build or a P3 partnership to pay for some of this, where the district didn't have to put the money in. So there's a few options, and I just wanted to bring it to the attention that it could be a good win-win for the community. because I know there's been word of consultants looking at the Lighthouse Pub for redevelopment, but I can't confirm it. And if it does redevelop, then it's an uncertainty of what will happen with that property. So this meeting was just to get an overview of what we were thinking for the community and see if council has an interest in this to bring it forward to planning and see if there's an interest in improving that under a partnership. And I think an agreement could be put together with the district, with whoever, and put it out as a public tender, expression of interest, and just see if there's some action on that.
Do you have more you'd like to say to us, or could we go to questions from councillors?
Sorry?
Do you want to give us more information?
Well,
or
at this point, I think this is all the, Alice, all the information we had at this point was to come up with a concept, because when we look at the existing lease property and the boundaries extended already, they're really in breach of the lease. And to make that legal, if you're going to go through that work to do so, it might be worth just expanding it to fit a future program.
Thank you. Do councillors have questions? Councillor Seegers?
Thank you. I'll check with staff, but I believe we just received a $10,000 grant to do some wharf redevelopment design work. Confirm, please.
Yes, we did receive a grant to do some study work on the area. So that could certainly be used in this kind of an endeavor. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Mueller.
Yes, thank you. In this information piece that you've given us, there's a number of different, I guess you would say, orientations of a potential plan, or is there one in here in particular that perhaps operators of an air service would deem to be the highest priority?
Well, I feel there's going to be a bit of consultation on how that works, and I think it's going to have a lot to do with First Nations input on expanding the boundaries and what would be acceptable. So there's just a few different options. The main reason here is to see if there's an interest level to do something on the government dock. And, you know, if there is, then there's stage two would be to go to a proposal by the district to put it out to tender for design build or a partnership with the district to improve the dock system and possibly come up with this concept.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Inkster?
Yeah.
Oh,
Thank
Councillor Shanks.
Oh, sorry.
Reach for the top.
Age before beauty. Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation this evening. You know, this has been long talked about for many years that I can remember. And so I think we should take the initiative and refer this to our staff to come back to us with a report indicating the options that have been presented here. And now we've got $10,000. Perhaps we can use that in a wise way moving this forward. Thanks very much.
And Mike, I don't mind spending some time to take any proposals to the First Nations. We do work with them, and it might, you know, having a third party involved, I won't charge you for it, just to go and deal with them and see if they really will entertain the idea of an expanded boundary. So it's just something to think about.
Thank you. Councillor Inkster.
Yeah, Doug, just I'm sure with the she shells, it would probably be a discussion of, you know, if in fact the boundaries agreed upon by them, I'm sure they recognize the air dock need going forward, but probably how the docks are designed, most likely to let sunlight through, as I'm assuming what to protect the sea life is probably something you're going to hear going forward, just as a heads up with sustainability and some of the First Nations concerns that we've heard. When you were making this proposal, and we have an existing plan in place from a few years ago, so maybe this $10,000 can help with the aerodrome exploration that you're mentioning. Are you sort of suggesting that there would be a financial plan put together that would be paid for by the airlines over a number of years for the use of the dock? That's how we would justify it to the taxpayer. Is that what you're thinking of?
I can't speak on
Yeah.
the proponents, but I feel it would have to be fair to the public, whatever you decide would have to be put out as an offering to any airline that's in the floatplane business to meet a specific guideline that you guys have come up with to put a facility in there and make sure they're substantial enough, they're not gonna, go broke or lose interest in it. So, that may open it up to a few different people, and it may not. But at least if you put it out there, you'll get some feedback on how that would come back to you. And then if you did a P3 partnership or a design thing or, some kind of a proposal, it would depend on what planning and engineering would come up with to see what participation a potential tenant would have.
Okay.
Can I speak to that?
Yeah, Leah might have an idea.
If you're asking my opinion,
To the mic, please. Thank you.
sorry. If you're asking if Harbor Air and would put money into this, is that what you're particularly asking? If this was a scenario put out by you guys and we were interested?
Yeah.
Is that what you're,
Well, not necessarily. What I was asking is, and similar to that, is that you enter into a lease arrangement to the successful leasee that would mean that they would pay the district for the use over a number of years, that would probably most likely pay for the dock over a number of years, but also some extra revenue coming to the district for providing that service.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few different ways that I've already discussed with Harbor Air and any kind of interest of doing this, and head office is already on board for this.
Okay.
So they're willing to either put money up front and have it paid off in a reduction of our long-term lease. We're looking for long-term. We intend to stay here, we want to be here, and we want something secure. So this seems like the best idea for us, rather than having private rentals where it's subject to the influx of markets and people buying and changing rules. So we're happy to put up large chunks of money ahead of time and have that as a fair set deal over a long period of time. With any other airline, we don't want control over it. We don't want, it would be an aerodrome up for anyone, up for any airline. Sunshine Coast Air, Grant, whoever. So we are definitely interested in going forward with something like this.
Thank you for your interest. And Councillor Seegers.
Thank you. I guess you answered my question.
Okay.
I was wondering if something like this went ahead, if it was, in other areas, I don't know what you do, but is it for one airline only, or others come in and use it? You each have your own areas?
Right. We realize that it wouldn't be fair for us to take. So there are some examples of this. Nanaimo would be a perfect example if you did want to take a look at that. The harbor owns it, and that's what this proposal would do. We would put the money up front, but you would own it and run it and decide who goes and who stays. Obviously, if we were to put a large chunk of money up front, we would have an agreement with you for 10, 25 years, something like that would be the payoff time for what we're putting up front. After that, you could do whatever you want, kick us out, whatever. But it would be, we're looking for, instead of the airport that I know has been looked at for upgrading, instead of putting money into a small airport like that is very costly to do what you're looking to do for a small airport like that. A small aerodrome like this could actually replace that with way less cost and still service larger aircraft, like we have the 14-seat Otters. They could easily come into something like that, and they have before, and we could have them. We run Nanaimo 5 times a day in the summer. We run Vancouver Airport and downtown Vancouver we're doing right now. Long term, those could all be Otters. So you're looking at a large service that could help provide easement to and from the coast. And that's what we're looking to do, is expand, but I don't have anywhere to expand to at this point with that. And thinking long-term. I want to retire here, so this is my plan as well.
I have to also remind you, as a municipality, we can't sole source. And that's something
Fair enough.
that staff would come back with a report giving us some options on how we can best work with our asset. So
Yeah,
thank you
absolutely.
for
And
your
we,
interest.
We understand that it has to go out into the public.
Yes, Councillor Cedars.
Yeah, Councillor Shanks was looking to put a motion forward, but I believe that when we approved the application for the $10,000 grant, that we actually have already tasked staff with putting together a plan to come back to us for the Porpoise Bay Wharf. Is there anything further you feel you need at this time? Okay, thank you.
So thank you for your time, and we will have staff do some work on our behalf, and you'll be informed for sure.
There isn't like a timeline on that or anything?
No,
we can-
not at
okay.
this stage.
Okay, okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Our next delegation is Gary Feschuk and Cam Reed, our former mayor, and they're here to speak to us on a Sechelt reconciliation project. Who wants a chair? Welcome, Chief Feschuk. It's good to see you. And you too, Mayor Reed.
Good evening. This is one of my, I don't get out very often, so I'm just glad to come be able to do a short presentation tonight because I believe you have the material in front of you. I just want to thank you for allowing to hear us tonight. And just to let you know, my recovery is still going forward, and it's very slow, but it's still going in the right direction. I just come today because this started in my living room a few months ago. Nancy Denham would always come to my house once a week, and she would read a book to me on somebody who wrote a book on who survived a stroke. And so I want to thank the District of Sechelt who supported the monument that we have up at the band complex. And so we decided, because she had some money left over from that project, she talked about what can we do another project. And so this goes towards the 94 calls to reconciliation from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And one of them is so we've already got the blessings of the Sechelt Indian Band Council. They totally support this project. And it's a reconciliation project that we want to do. We have a committee put together. We have some survivors of the residential school who are on that committee. Myself and Cam Reed are the co-chairs. And one of the projects we're going to kick-start it on April 25th in our longhouse. And we're hoping that the District of Sechelt Council will support our endeavors on this reconciliation project, because what we're looking to do is to reconcile the past that happened to our people, because that residential school is right in the middle of our community. Right where our band complex is the residential school. That's where the school stood. And the thing that we're going to do is that we're going to have the greater community get involved in this project. What we're going to do is do a reconciliation totem pole. Where it's going to be erected, we don't know yet. But we're going to have the greater community to be able to assist the carver and help carve that totem pole. And so we'll be inviting probably all the residents from the Sunshine Coast who have an interest to come and help put a notch into that pole. And then we have some weavers who want to do some friendship blankets. We're going to weave some blankets, and we would like the greater community to come and help the weaver weave those blankets. And then, so there'll probably be about 4 blankets that are going to be weaved. because we're going to do a presentation to the SCRD also. And I talked to a member of the RCMP, and we're going to do a presentation to the RCMP for them to get on board also. So we're hoping that if the project goes ahead and we have your blessing, that one of these blankets will be hanging in your council chambers. And so it's to reconcile the past, because it was the saddest chapter in the era of the Sechelt, or the history of Native people from across Canada. And we will want to put an end to it. So the 94 calls to reconciliation will be a great start to reconcile our interests here with the greater community on the Sunshine Coast. And to kickstart it on April 25th, where our people will be out to share some of our culture and to give a historical view of our people. And also some of our survivors will be able to tell you their stories, which are very painful. And the reason why I'm so interested in doing this, because I'm still involved in the class action suit that's going forward with Canada, and it is still moving forward. But I'm not allowed to talk about it because I'm not a spokesperson for the band anymore. But I'm still involved. And while we're going through that process, my brother-in-law was one of the main plaintiffs for the Sechelt band, and he passed away during the process because every time he had to tell his story, he had a hard time recovering from his experiences. And so he passed away last year. And so I'm hoping that we can have your blessings and move forward with this project. You want to say something?
Thank you.
All right. Councillors and staff, thank you for hearing us. I wasn't aware that we had councillors by the name of Age and Beauty, but that was interesting. I think this is a very unique opportunity for the District of Sechelt to take part in this event. It's unique. It's one of its kind. The Denhams have put this together with Gary as a wonderful way to get people together to put peace to this reconciliation issue. They've got a lot to express, a lot to share, and they can't do it without organizations such as yourself coming together and partnering and saying, we're partners, we're going to help you make this work. So it's an opportunity for you. I think if you don't take it, it's going to be the community's loss. Thank you.
Thank you. So besides our blessing, what are you needing from council and staff?
Well, I guess once we get your blessing, I guess all the logistics will be worked out. We have been working with a member of your cultural department who is sitting on that committee with us and is reporting back to the council. But we're here to do a formal presentation to see if you'll now join us, and hopefully you'll come to the April 25th event.
Thank you. Questions from council? Councillor Inkster.
Yeah, thanks Alnosh for coming, Gary, and speaking to us today. And thanks, Cam, for being part of this important project for the two communities that work together as one in a lot of ways. Are you asking the two of you for us to, if need be, sign letters of support, if need for funding, as you mentioned, and things like that? Is that what you're requesting?
Darren, I think we're going to need more than just letters of support. I think we're going to need you as partners at the table for more than that. I'm thinking of also some financial help. Gary and I were talking about, well, how can the district support it financially? And we were saying, well, we formed the community forest. Surely they can give back to us, the community.
Thank you. Councillor Mueller?
I guess I don't really have a question. I'm just really happy that you brought this. You have my complete support. That's myself, and I know that the rest of us here are certainly feeling along the same lines. I know, and I'm glad you mentioned the monument up at the band hall. For myself, I just wanted to say that was one of, if not the above and beyond most emotional event that I've encountered in my 4 years here. And it was something that I'll never forget. And I think that one of the issues here you're going to find is that when you put this out, you're going to need to expand the program because so many people are going to want to be a part of it. And I'll tell you, I'll be one of the first people to sign up to be a part of carving that totem pole. Thanks.
Councillor Seegers?
Thank you. I think we need to make a motion to refer this to staff to draft something in line with what's been requested and bring it back so that we can review it as council and move it forward.
And a seconder. Thank you. I think also our staff could help with information around the collection from citizens in the community could possibly be worked through our arts and culture and our finance. With the new changes to the Society Act, there's some things that have to be done differently. So I think that's something we need to look at too before we commit to anything definite. But you know, you certainly have our support, and we'll do what we can where we can. I think Nancy.
May I have a word?
Yes, you may.
Right there, if that would just come up a little bit on your first page of the proposal. We're asking specifically for two things right now, so we can stop there. And we need to be able to apply to certain grants. We need a tax donation number.
Yeah.
We cannot go forward any more than what we've done so far. On the 25th of April, we hope to have a fundraising launch, and we want to be able to give tax receipts to people. We were hoping the municipality would help with that. That's a very specific thing. And a public space. And we have an idea, which actually came from Mr. Inkster, and that was the Friendship Park. We have some space where we can put up a tent and have the pole there. How perfect would that be?
Excellent.
And so there's those two specific things right now, so that when we have our launch on the 25th of April, we'll be able to say we're going forward, and we can actually send out the call to the artists to submit. And we need to do some work. We only have a couple of $1,000s to do the launch and to start, but we need to fundraise.
Right.
That's helpful.
And that's what I was referring to with Siobhan Smith and Doug Stewart. So I would think that our motion is safe the way it stands and help from staff on how to take the next steps, correct? So, yes, Councillor Seegers?
Yes, can we just check with staff to ensure that what we've put forward will actually allow them to do what needs to be done?
I missed George Margaret, but I have that staff draft the plan in line with what is being requested of the district of Seychelles.
And bring it back to council for approval. Okay, thank you.
Perfect, thank you. So you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you so much for the presentation.
I just want to thank you for your support. And on the 25th, we do have some of our artists who's designing a T-shirt to sell as part of the fundraiser at the event. And I have one of my cousins who's going to design a paddle necklace to have or to kick off the reconciliation. And reconciliation means different things to many people. And to me, it means moving forward with partnerships and relationships. My wife is a survivor of the residential school. And so when we lost our brother-in-law, I just made it my point that I would make sure I see this to the end and help out anywhere I can. So I want to thank you for your time tonight. I've never been out this late for a long time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, councillors and staff.
So I do not have any proclamations. We move to item 5.1, minutes of the regular council meeting of March 7th, page 17 to 31. Could I have a motion for the, yes.
I'd like to pull one for separate consideration, please. Page 26, sorry, page 28, number 18. I'd just like to speak to that when it comes up.
Page 21,
28,
sorry.
number 18, 2018, 3B18, right at the top.
Thank you. So I need, any other recommendations to be pulled? Yes.
Just a reminder, council's actually right now considering adoption of its previous minutes, unlike committee minutes where you may want to pull a recommendation and consider it separately. So in this case, what I'm hearing Councillor Seegers ask, I think you may wish to adopt these minutes, and then under business arising, you could discuss a matter in the minutes.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you for reminding us. So I need adoption of the minutes. First and second. Oh, I'm sorry. Any corrections, errors, or omissions before we adopt? Yes.
Thank you. In number 3, the appointments and delegations, I know the agenda did say Tara Crosby on behalf of Tina Perot, but it was actually Tina Perot that was here.
Yes.
Presenting. So that's on page 17.
Thank
17
you.
and 18. It was Tina Perot.
So we will correct that. Any further?
That's
So-
it. Thank you.
A motion to adopt. All those in favor? Thank you. Now, business arising from those minutes. Page 28, you want to talk about recommendation 17? 18. So that was the motion that was defeated around SSC properties. Councillor Seegers.
Thank you. So recently, there have been some derogatory remarks made about our Director of Planning on social media. I felt her report was very clear, so I wanted to summarize the information she presented at the last council meeting. As we all know, the property known as Silverback was zoned for a golf course and 1,600 homes in the OCP. A covenant was registered on title to the property, indicating that after a certain number of homes were built, for a payment of $8 million, the property was to be connected to the wastewater treatment plant. The property was not in the urban containment boundary, yet was clearly designated for substantial development, including a hotel of 6 stories. When we, this council, passed the OCP amendment in 2015 to change the designation for this property from rural residential to mixed residential commercial development, we created many of the inconsistencies that Ms. Corbett referred to in her report. When staff previously presented their recommendations to council, not once or twice, but 3 times in each case, they indicated that the property should be brought inside the urban containment boundary and connected to sewer. Council continually rejected their recommendations. Not following their recommendations is what caused some of the inconsistencies and created the majority of the risks for the municipality. Our previous decision ensured this development would not be included in the urban containment boundary, which is defined in the OCP as lands that will accommodate the majority of new residential development, servicing infrastructure, and community uses. If we proceeded with zoning as proposed, as we did not include the property in the urban containment boundary, it would be inconsistent with the OCP growth characteristics, and we know it's not legal to pass a zoning bylaw that's inconsistent with the OCP. As well, by not allowing this development to be connected to the sewer treatment plant, the SSC proposal is not consistent with the servicing and infrastructure policies of the OCP. To address this, the OCP would need to be reconsidered and revised. In her report, she stipulated that packaged treatment plants typically create more risk for a municipality as the developer has difficulty in sizing the treatment plant to have it grow with the development, particularly when the development is large. And if sufficient build-out of the property does not happen in a timely manner, both the development and the treatment plant can and have been shown to fail. Then the responsibility for managing the sewer treatment for the homes already built and the residents who live in them would fall to the municipality at potentially significant cost. We were advised to set the development up for success to minimize the risk to the municipality. Unfortunately, when our Director of Planning and Development Services pointed out the inconsistencies that had been created with this development by council not following staff recommendations in report after report, this council used the inconsistencies that we created to vote to deny this proposal first reading and referral to public hearing. I'd like to thank Ms. Corbett for clearly laying out the path that we could have taken and the risks that could have been addressed to ensure this development succeeded for the betterment of the community. Please stay respectful on social media when you refer to staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further on the minutes or business arising? Seeing none, we go to committee minutes and reports. 7.1, minutes of the Finance, Culture and Economic Development meeting of March 7th, page 32 to 37. Could I have someone pull any? Yes. Okay, let's adopt. With, yes, amendments? They are?
Thank you. On page 34, sorry. Second bullet, debt costs are for short-term borrowing, I believe it should say. Page 34?
Yeah.
Okay, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, eighth bullet down. It says there has been a reduction in audit fees by $15,000 as a new contract has been awarded. Is MMP? MNP? MNP. MNP, thank you.
N as in Norman?
Yes, MNP,
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, any other errors or omissions? I'll move for adoption. Someone? Yes, and second. Any questions, comments? All those in favor? Thank you. Item 7.2, minutes of the Finance, Culture and Economic Development meeting of March 14th, page 38 to 47. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, could I have a motion to adopt? Moved, seconded. You have a question?
Just to be consistent with the statements and the vote that I made, and rather than voting against all of it, I would like to pull 12 and 15 so I can vote against it again.
Certainly. Item 12, recommendation 12 and recommendation 15. You would like to pull for further discussion?
Madam Chair, I have not further discussion. I made my points then. I just want to put on the table as it is, and I'll vote against it again based on the fact that I don't want it buried. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. So, yes. So we've pulled those two so that he can vote against them. The other recommendations, I need a motion. Yes. Thank you. And a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Wright. All those in favor of the recommendations other than the two pulled? Thank you. So now we go to the two that have been pulled. All those in favor? And opposed? Thank you. And you want that noted?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Now we come to bylaws for third reading. 8.1, Solid Waste Control Amendment Bylaw number 548-2, 2018. And this is for third reading. Pardon?
Chair, perhaps I I could present
Thank you.
the report?
Yes.
Thank you. This bylaw, Solid Waste Control Amendment Bylaw number 548-2, 2018 is in front of you for consideration of 3 readings. This arises because, as Council is aware, I believe Waste Management of Canada Corporation recently assumed ownership and operation of Direct Disposal Corp. Direct Disposal Corp, the previous solid waste collector, had a separate arrangement with residents of mobile home parks or manufactured home parks for the collection of their waste disposal. With Waste Management taking it over, they were only interested in providing the service within our solid waste boundaries. So for that reason, staff have had discussions with Waste Management and looked at options and basically come up with the option of including manufactured home parks within our solid waste boundaries. So this bylaw, once adopted, would put that in effect. The second item is, some time ago, actually at its February 21st regular meeting, Council considered a recommendation from committee that was based on a staff report and recommendation that garbage tags, the fee for garbage tags be increased from $2 to $4. That's also within the solid waste management bylaw, so this amendment bylaw will enact that as well once adopted. So there's the report in front of you, and then separate to that would be the bylaw to give 3 readings to.
Thank you. And thank you to the staff for bringing this forward. It's a good answer to what could have been a difficult problem. Yes, Councillor Seegers?
Thank you. I'll move receipt and recommendation 2 that we proceed with giving 3 readings.
Seconder? Any questions or comments around the report or the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. So now we can move to the bylaw for 3 readings tonight. Could I have a motion for bylaw number 548-2, 2018, solid waste control, collection and disposal? A bylaw to amend the solid waste collection and disposal. Move first reading, a seconder. Thank you. All in favor? And a mover for second reading. And a seconder. All those in favor? Thank you. And a third reading. Mover, seconder. All those in favor? Thank you. 8.2. A report from Manager of Finance around financial plan amendment. Seconder. Any questions or comments around receipt? Seeing none, all those in favor? And the second recommendation, I believe Director Stewart will speak to.
Thank you, Madam Chair, or Madam Mayor. So this is really a housekeeping item. It's to amend the 2017 to 2021 financial plan, just based on activities that happened throughout 2017. A report was brought to the Finance Committee and ultimately Council late last year with the recommendation to make these changes. The Committee and Council did endorse them at that time. This is really the report to actually bring the amended bylaw forward to Council to get 3 readings tonight. As I say, it was really just some housekeeping items. One, to change some funding for some capital projects, to fund them from gas tax funds rather than capital funds. Gas tax funds have some restrictions behind them, so it was to move projects that are eligible for gas tax funding to have them funded there to free up those other funds. It also includes some contingency items from unexpected items that happened in 2017. We do have a contingency budget, but it's to move the accounts to get council's approval to ultimately have spent those funds. And finally, it was two other projects. One was a Trail Bay Wharf. It wasn't in the capital plan. We received the insurance money to replace the wharf, so it's really to give us approval to have spent the money to replace the wharf, which we did with the insurance funds. So, and finally, a carry forward project from 2016 that was not in the plan, but the project was carried from 16 to 17. So again, it's really a housekeeping item just to make sure our plan is in line with what actually occurred last year, ultimately to produce our financial statements. And of course, we're in the middle of doing the 2018 plan, so this will have no effect on that. It's simply to get 2017 back in order. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Questions? Okay, we have recommendation number 2 has been moved, seconded. Questions or comments around the report or the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. So now we move to the bylaw to amend the financial plan, and it's bylaw number 557-1, 2018. Is that correct? So we need to move 3 readings. I need a motion for first. Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? And for a 3rd reading? Moved and seconded. Everyone in favor? Thank you. So we have no new business, and we have business items 10.1, Rockwood Lodge repair update, pages 67 to 74. We have a motion to receive, seconded. Questions or comments around the report? Would you like to give us the breakdown? Thank you, Siobhan.
Thank you. Before you is an information-only report, but because this is the first time and potentially the last time that I'll be bringing a report to you on the renovation of the Rockwood, I thought I'd include as much information as I could. So I'm going to ask Joanne to kindly put up an image of the Rockwood. It's on the desktop, not that one. Thank you. So as most of you will know, the Rockwood Lodge was built between 1935 and 1936, and it is the only officially designated heritage building that we have in our community. It was operated as a lodge for visitors to Sechelt for a number of years, and then in the 1980s was turned over to community groups to make use of. It actually spent a couple of years as a mud bath spa, but that was short-lived. Since the mid-1980s has been used by a variety of community groups for all sorts of events and activities. The main floor level of the Rockwood is used between 200 to 300 days of the year by dozens of local community groups for all sorts of meetings, events, and activities. And it is the regular meeting place for a number of social service groups, youth mental health, victim services, Indigenous healing circles, pride groups. The lower level, at one point in the 1990s, was actually known as the Art Space and held numerous community art exhibitions, children's music programming, and most recently was a meeting spot for a community youth group. Sadly, in 2016, we realized that the building's drainage system had completely failed, and the lower level of the building was taking on water and needed to be vacuumed out and a dehumidifier put in place on a daily basis. serendipitously, a grant came our way very shortly after. And so we were fortunate to receive funding from the province of BC through their BC Canada 150 Celebrating Communities grant program. We received that grant in April of 2017, and work on the project began almost immediately. Joanne, if I could get you to switch to the last slide there. There's just 3 images, so that's what the room used to look like. So we have completely redone the lower level. Once they took out the walls, if you looked, see where those gentlemen are standing, if you looked underneath that framing there, you would have found about 2 feet of water between the exterior of the building and the rock that the building is built up against. You'll see a detailed list of all of the work that actually needed to be done to this facility in my report. And I would like to take a moment to acknowledge all of our staff who put in hours and weeks worth of work on this project. Les Dornbier, Monty Alcock, James Swan, Adam Holt, Jamie Anderson, Hélène Gagnon, and Dylan Chow, along with numerous local contractors and service people who've helped us with this. It's nearly done. And as I noted in my report, we haven't simply saved this building, but we've created a new community use space. We've increased the use of this building, and we've provided something that will be able to be used for generations to come in our community. It really is a beautiful focal point in our downtown. And we will be doing a public unveiling in May. And we do hope that by the summer, we'll have the lower level available for rental by community groups. Just checking to see if there was anything else I wanted to mention. I think we're pretty good there. So if you have any questions, I didn't bring any pictures of the finished space. I'm going to leave you all hanging for a bit. You have to wait until the official unveiling, but we're very proud of the work that our staff has done in this space, and it's quite beautiful. So I'm looking forward to being able to share that with the community and invite the community into the space and have a new multi-purpose room for our community.
Thank you for your report. Councillor Mueller.
Yeah, I just noted in a report, jumped out like a sore thumb, that that the revenue expenses were within 1% of each other. Any comments on the magic of that? Any future and quantity surveying coming your way, or?
I tried to keep a close eye on that budget. We had a very tight budget, so we did the best we could, and I think we succeeded in being able to stick within what we said we would spend.
Any other comments? I see 4.1.6, work to be considered in future as funding allows. Do you have any estimation on the costs of that further work that would be a good investment?
We do have some ballpark figures. As I do mention later in the report, we would need to actually put a business plan together and bring this forward in 2019 budgeting process if we were to move forward with some of these. The windows, for example, it's actually quite a major project, even though there's only 5 windows that would need to be replaced. It's one of the most important features of any heritage building that you maintain the look and feel of the original windows. And we did receive a quote early on in the project, and it wasn't possible to include that in the project within our budget. Some of the other items are smaller budget items, but we would need to bring all of those to you in the form of a business case or a proposal for 2019.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Inkster. No. Councillor Segers.
Thank you. I notice in your report that you indicate that this space could potentially be used to house the archives. that the library is looking to move out. And, I mean, it's mutual. They want to part ways. The space they have now is not sufficient anymore. And the library could really use the space for public programming. So I think in your report it's indicated that you've talked with the archivist, Ann Watson, and that she was in agreement, but that there is some work and shelving and budget proposal that would need to come forward. So do we anticipate seeing something like that come forward in 2019?
Yes, I would like to bring a proposal forward outlining what some of the options might be. So this is one option. There might be others, but it was something that we considered early on, actually right when we applied for the grant. We weren't sure of what level we really could finish the project to, whether or not it would be appropriate, how much space there would be. Now that the project is finished, and I have had the opportunity to walk the space with the archivist, to discuss it also with the chief librarian, and to discuss it with our facilities manager who does all the facility bookings. We have determined that it's a possibility worth exploring, but certainly it would be one that we would need to do a bit more research into, and also work out the costing on what it would actually look like to physically move them into that space.
Okay, well, I look forward to that presentation.
And Councillor Inkster.
Thanks. I'm looking forward to seeing this heritage building, which is important to many, and especially at Christmas time when the lights are lit there and the lights come down from there to the cenotaph. So it's good to see the work done and to make sure that we preserve as many older buildings as we can. So kudos to yourself and staff, and I guess teasingly to you, I hope that ICBC doesn't hear that you've kept this within budget. Because you know,
I hope they do.
you may be, they may be absconding you, but anyway, good job on the budget.
Councillor Shanks.
Yes, just a comment. Don't overlook the possibilities of members of council contributing, because we have done in the past to various public projects within the town of Sechelt. So when the library needs some help, perhaps the offer can be put out to members of council who would love to potentially assist in that. There's 7 of us here.
Thank you.
I'm speaking for myself because the last project we did was, some of you may remember, was put in the wooden floor on the mezzanine at the Seaside Center. And I'm not sure how many contributed, but
It's me and you.
no, it's more than me and you.
No, I know, but at this table.
Oh, I'm not,
you're
yeah,
talking about the council,
yeah.
so yeah.
But anyway, there is some potential for a workforce coming from the state.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much.
Anything further on this item? Seeing none, we'll move to business item 10.2, Parks and Rec Master Plan, Council Update. Yes. Oh, we've had a motion to receive the report, seconded. Thank you. And planning, thank you.
Thank you, members of council. The report before you is just an update report on phase 2 of the Parks and Rec Master Plan. A big portion of this component was to do the surveys, and so reporting back on the results of that. This is impossible to read on on the slide, so I'll tell you about it. It's a 3-phase project. Phase 1 has been completed, and I believe you got an update on that December 20th. We're into the last part of phase 2, and that's bringing forward the results of the survey, the priorities, that sort of thing, which will work their way into the recommendations for the master plan. And then in phase 3, there will be, that's where it gets finalized. There's another round of consultation. The consultants working on it will present the report to you and to get feedback on what do you think before they finalize the report and the recommendations. It's fairly on time. It shifted with loss of time in December, I think because of holidays. This is showing an end at the end of March. It will probably be the end of April. So probably the 3rd or 4th week of April when the consultant is in front of you. So the survey was developed in January, and that was based on the initial round of public consultation. And the survey itself focused on getting feedback on the priorities of projects, both large-scale, district-wide, and some smaller-scale neighborhood-level priorities. It was mailed to 1,500 residents. It came back with 378 responses. That's a 25.2% response rate, which is actually pretty good on a written survey. That's quite good. Interestingly, the highest priority was maintenance and improvement of existing parks and trails, which I think speaks really highly to the work of the Parks Department, that people are kind of suggesting that. And it was by quite a large margin of really suggesting they're very happy with what is existing in the district and just want us to keep it up and do more. Also, indication that residents would support a tax increase of between 1% and 2%, which equates to about $15 to $30 a year. They gave in the survey, did increments of $15, and it was fairly even around the 30 and 40, and then it dropped off at the 60. So in terms of the major projects, the number one that came out very high is the waterfront trail connecting Trail Bay and Davis Bay. Second was completing the Sun Coaster Trail. And the other was the need for a centrally located outdoor gathering space, so a place to hold events, ideally a covered area. The moderate projects were upgrades to Hackett Park, securing the Chapman Creek Trail Network, and the conversion of the boulevard to a pedestrian route along the waterfront. So the next steps will be the consultants will take this information, they'll create draft recommendations, there'll be a final round of public consultation. It'll return to you, I actually had it for adoption, but they'll actually bring it in first just to get your feedback on it before they finalize it, and then it will be back for adoption. Project is on budget, and as I mentioned, the phasing is out by about a month. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Put on your mic.
I don't have a lot of questions on this. I've seen the methodology involved in the information gathered. Thanks to staff for doing this, and thanks for those that took the time to fill out the report that came to them. And I would love to see more information come from the public, but I thank those that took the time, extensive questions to answer them. But I would note that it's quite clear by the information given to us that, and as I mentioned previous to this information coming to us and answered questions, that there isn't necessarily a lot of discussion of playing fields. And that is something that I was concerned about going forward. So obviously it's an indication that the fields are in good shape, but it's also that the generally who's taking these surveys, Madam Chair, is not necessarily those under 25 in a lot of cases, because they would be talking about playing fields. And we know that there's it's topical in our community. More recently, we know playing field is in discussion, so it is an issue in the community in terms of playing fields, but not necessarily captured in this survey. But I'm glad we have some very good ones that are well used by soccer and baseball. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mueller.
Yeah, I just wanted to, highlight something that I've been following, but I think we could have included actually a specific question on pickleball in here, because we know we have a lot of members in our community that are interested in pickleball, and I think you would have got perhaps a different response. But it's tough when you've got targeted questions to take this and understand the full picture. I think this gives council something. We're looking at our budget, and I know council on this side is often concerned about the role of parks and the way the parks factors into our operations, but we can see the community kind of feels of it differently, and I think that's important to know. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Shanks.
Yeah, I'd just like to remind staff and members of council that one of the issues that was going to receive considerable consultation was the closure of the boulevard and for the specific use of pedestrians. And so we've been told that that consultation is going to take place before that decision is made.
Thank you. Anything further? Yeah. All those in favor of receipt? Thank you. And I'll turn the chair over to Councillor Mueller.
All right, thank you, everyone. Just thank you for giving me a moment to get situated. Up next is item 10.3, the request for decision, and we have a recommendation report from the municipal planner regarding West Porpoise Bay Estates Development Variance Permit. Application be received. Moved. Seconded. All those in favor? And that's carried. The municipal planner, Ms. Letman.
Yes, members of council, I just want to bring your attention, at the last council meeting, council considered the initial part of the application, but the motion was subject to the notification of neighboring property owners and tenants within 50 meters of the property. That comprised 133 households, and to which I think we received 9 responses, and you've been emailed all of those responses. So I'm just going to go through the PowerPoint presentation. You can see the location of the property is on Porpoise Bay. It's in there's the aerial shot. You can see the easement access coming up in terms of the access road is here. And this is the location of buildings 5 and 6 that we are now considering. This portion that was previously applied for has been removed from the application, and we're looking at 5 and 6, which was what council had endorsed at the last council meeting. I wanted to bring up this slide that's from the official community plan. It talks about the neighborhood boundaries that are in the official community plan. And you can see I put a star where this property is within the Sechelt Village neighborhood. As an indicator there are policies within the Sechelt Village, policies about multifamily buildings and working waterfront, whereas in the West Porpoise Bay neighborhood policies, there are no policies about multifamily or working waterfront. It also, the legal description of the property is District Lot 303, and those gray lines that you see are district lots, and District Lot 303 and 304 comprise most of the downtown core. All of 303 and 304 are in the downtown neighborhood, and then there are some additional DLs, district lots, partially in there as well. The official community plan feature land use designation is multifamily. The official community plan, part 4, residential policies, and that is the figure 17. It's called the housing forms and density chart. And it talks about the typical heights for apartment buildings. You can see I've highlighted it in a red box there, that for multifamily and mixed residential in the downtown center, apartments are 3 to 4 stories at the typical height, and up to 6 stories in some locations. The zoning is R4, multifamily. And in that, we're slipping now to the other zoning issues are how we define grade, means the average natural elevation prior to regrading, subdivision, or construction, as measured around the perimeter of the proposed building footprint or directly below its outermost exterior walls. And this gives you an idea of, and this would be a kind of typical plan of a building, how we would have perhaps 4 corners of the building. We would add them together and take the average, and that would create the average grade. And the architect on this project has done that with each of the proposed buildings. And what they're requesting in terms of the variance is what will meet their requirements in terms of height. This is a cross-section of how we measure in terms of building height. We look at the average natural grade. I've given an example there, sort of indicating on a steep slope how we establish the average natural grade and go up 10.5 meters. And on a steep slope, it means that there are some definite changes in elevation at the upper part of the property. The height, and we'll skip to B, is for all other buildings. Height means the distance measured vertically along the projected line of the face of the building from the grade to the highest point of the roof surface of a flat roof, or to the mean level between the eaves and ridge of a gable, hip, or other sloping roof, and in the case of a structure without a roof, to the highest point of the structure. And then within the zone R4, there is the height restrictions. No building shall exceed 10.5 meters in height, and no accessory building shall exceed 6 meters. After the council meeting, the architect changed the drawings so that they better reflect the variance that's being requested by eliminating all of the previous proposed buildings in this area. So we're focusing just on building 5 and 6. You can see the cross-section for building 5 there. This one, the difference between these two is this one is through the stairwell, which pokes up a little bit above the roof to provide access to the elevator machine room. And here you can see the majority of the roof is at this elevation here. And you can see the relationship to the building above, the neighboring building that's constructed. This is building 6. Again, virtually the same height. At the topmost point is approximately 120 meters measured geodetically. And here as well, it's the flatter part. This is their calculation drawing of all the average natural grades that help to determine what exactly the variance they were looking for. And we have here the recommendations before you. I would like to point out that in the list of the drawings that we're going to get to, well, I'll get there in a moment. The development variance permit 2017-07 be approved for the property lot 1 DL304, plan EPP 70047, and the PID number. The various zoning bylaw number 25, 1987, section 532, height of the building, in the R4 residential 4 zone of zoning bylaw 25, 1987, from 10.5 meters, measured from the average grade of the midpoint of the roof, to, for building 5, an increase of 4.8 meters to 15.3 meters, and for building 6, an increase of 5.95 meters to 16.45 meters. I've further included the drawings that we just reviewed so that there'll be no question about the actual height that's being proposed on both buildings, as well as the exact location of the buildings in terms of the application. And those have included, and I would like to just correct the motion where it says that the drawings prepared by Tyler Schmidt Architect dated January 12th, we could strike out the dated January 12th, 2018, because the date is March 9th, 2018, and it's listed in each of the following drawing lists of the roof plan, site plan, the building sections, and the site contour plan that shows the average natural grade. And leaving in the final recommendation was from the previous council meeting was provided that neither building is higher than 2 stories above the level of the paved strata road adjacent to each building. So thank you, members of council.
Yes, thank you. I think before we get into this, we should probably deal with the housekeeping issue of amending recommendation 2. If I have a mover to amend as suggested by the municipal planner to remove January 12th and replace it with March 9th, just to make sure that we're clear on that. And because it is in the official documents, we're going to have to deal with that. So moved. And seconded. So that's a motion to amend recommendation 2 point, I guess you would say that's 3 in Roman numerals, and replace it with the correct date, which is March 9th. All those in favor? And that's carried. So just to provide a bit of context to council, and I'm sure that the municipal planner misspoke. The council has not endorsed this application. Committee moved it forward to council, and that's where we're at today. At committee level, when this was previously discussed, we had a bunch of buildings put together into one application. 2 of those buildings were put forward to council for consideration. This is building 5 and 6. And the main issue being the heights. This is a development variance permit to deal with the heights of the buildings. So if I have any movers for recommendation 2 to get this on the table. On the report. Okay. Councilor Seegers.
Thank you. Could we see the pictures again? I have a question about 4, the Roman numeral 4 here. It talks about neither building higher than 2 stories above the level. I'm just wanting to see, is that consistent with the other? It is. Is it showing the roads? And then another question I had was, I understand this is a separate strata now. Is that correct?
Municipal planner.
That's correct. They have a separate legal title now.
For buildings 5 and 6?
For building 4 and the rest
5
of
and
that
6?
property, correct.
Okay. Will this strata have an easement over the road for access? Because they'll need...
Yes, it does.
It does. Okay.
The existing road, the one
Yes.
that's shared by several stratas.
Yes, because then it comes around behind building 4.
Yes, it
correct,
does.
For access to building 5 and 6. Okay. I'm willing to move recommendation number 2 as amended there.
Do we have any further questions about the report before I entertain a motion? Okay, and do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Shanks, for discussion. Councillor Seegers.
Thank you. I know we've had some people come forward and indicate, well, actually a number of people come forward and indicate that they do not want us to approve this variance. I understand their concerns. When we look at this lot here, they were concerns raised about views from those existing buildings. I think those have been mitigated by these 2 buildings. The other buildings that were proposed, we actually had serious concerns about that as well, and we didn't feel that the residents had actually been consulted on those. So I'm okay with moving these 2 forward, but I think we referred the rest of it back to staff for more work before the other buildings came forward. So that's why I'm in support of this, because we're only looking at those 2 buildings. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Shanks.
Once again, I would like you just to clarify for us the level of grade on buildings 5 and 6, please.
So that
the buildings can be
the natural grade is
no higher than 2 stories above the level of the
of the
paved.
strata road, which is
Yeah.
here. This
That's
is
the
the
strata-
level up here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. And number 6?
And number 6. It's right in here.
That's okay.
Anything further? I actually had a question about, on page 3 of your report, there's a new graph there, I don't believe was on the first one, indicating some numbers around level of average natural grade and then additional building height requested. If we could pull that up. I'm not sure those numbers jive because we were told it's a 10.5 for the zoning, and they're asking for a variance of 4.8, but the level of natural grade, how do those numbers mesh?
So that's the level of calculated natural grade from that diagram of the plan you have, the site plan. It should be the last drawing in your package. It has calculated the average natural grade at 18.3,
So
And
that's
then-
a geodetic then from sea level, is that correct?
Yes, I think it is. So if I go back, maybe we can see that. Oh, sorry, or go forward, Joanne. You can see the applicant has indicated both the imperial and the metric versions. I'm just going to get there. Okay. So here is the imperial measurement here. And you can see this is the metric version. So the average natural grade on building 5 was that 18-meter section, which is in here somewhere. It's not down here, so it's up there a bit. So that's what they've calculated, and they brought that in those numbers.
Okay, just as long as we're clear as to what those numbers mean and that the variance numbers are correct.
I was assured by the applicant that they were correct. The other numbers for building 6 are 20.2, and the request is for 5.95 on building 6.
Is there something further, Councillor Shanks?
I'm just looking at the relativity and whether or not the units to the left, as we see it here.
Go ahead and turn your mic on.
I'm just looking at the diagram with respect to the units to the left, if they are impacted, if their view is impacted. No, but there's nothing on the lower level of the building to the left.
No, there is not. There is no unit there.
Maybe you can just show us that.
This here is the first level of the first units on this building.
Right.
So there's the majority of the building 6 is at this level here. They'll see much of the roof, but they'll see beyond it to the mountains.
Okay, Councillor Inkster with a question.
Thank you. Thanks you, Mr. Chair. So the information that's being provided to us in both of these diagrams here this evening, I'm asking through you to staff if in fact that was available to the community members who presented this petition to us in terms of able to determine the exact height, because as was just mentioned, the deck, as far as I can tell, and I can only go, unless I live there, I can only go based on what looks like sun decks and the height of a person standing over that, what they see, which is from what I can tell is 130 on that. Is that correct through you to staff? And then on the next one, if we go to the last one, I guess we'd say.
Building 5, I believe it was.
So you want building 5? Okay.
Yeah. So building 5, then the height that I would see that a person standing, which is what most people are, when they go out on those decks, are looking at, is at the 130 up there, 39.62. So based on the information, if they were presented this, and this is all I can rely on, is if those people that are concerned about the height can see over the building, and on the bottom floor, which is the lowest floor, they can, based on the information being presented. So I'm just checking through you to staff if this was available to people who had concerns. Pardon?
Yeah, this
Yes, exactly,
this information, more or less exactly like this, was what came to committee. And I
Okay.
believe that what came out of that recommendations was a notification request to the surrounding
Yeah.
residents, and that's why we've seen this petition show up, and we've got a broad spectrum of that. We're not able to interrupt in that way. There's a question and answer period at the end. If you want to discuss it at the end, that's when we'll do it.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, just in reference to that then. So what I'm seeing based on this information is there would be, I really take note of a number of signatures on a petition in reference to this, but and I'm assuming that they're opposed to a viewscape being interrupted or this being in the way of, and based on the information available to me, I cannot see that. So that's where I am. I'm looking for it. I'm trying to represent the people that are here and you know, feeling and or seeing what they see, and I can't see it. So that's where I'm stuck. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment from the municipal planner on that issue?
You can see here that the level of the balconies is here, that this level is above this height of this roof.
Okay, and just a process question then. This is a variance for height that will be registered on title.
That's
as
correct.
indicated in your report. And then we're going to see further at planning again would be the actual development permit, which would spell out in a little more clarity the entire project as it sits. And but I realize that in here is registered a roof plan. So how much of that could change further on down the line with a development permit?
We have received a revised development permit drawings, and we hope to bring them forward at the next Planning Commission meeting next week. And I can tell you that I'm not seeing any changes in terms of these drawings are the same that are coming forward. So in terms of the sections of the site, they're there. The drawings are more elaborate in terms of the elevations, the look of the building, the landscaping plan has been revised. So in essence, all of the drawings have been revised to remove those other sections of buildings.
Right. Thank you. Further question from Councillor Seegers.
Thank you. Building 4 is above Building 5, correct?
It's slightly above both of them. If we go to, let me just go to the last. So here you can see Building 4.
Mm-hmm.
It's in kind of two portions, but it's one building.
Yes.
And you can see here the location of Building 6 and 5. So it's in kind of in both directions there.
Okay, and when Building 4 was put up, I believe the work was already started for the road for access to Buildings 5 and 6.
I believe so. It's there now, the road. So
Yes.
it's not paved, a portion of it, but it is there.
Okay, so the people who bought in this building knew that there was going to be building behind them.
I believe, while we're not party to the disclosure statements, there is a Form P that was changed. And we have signatures of and I believe Building 4 is part of this strata. So they weren't involved in the change in the Form P, but because they're part of the strata. But the strata that's there existing, the original 3 buildings, all of the owners signed for the change, which led to the subdivision between the 2 properties.
Okay, thank you.
So I have some further questions around the heights. In our process, these were provided to us by the applicant, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and do we do a site verification of that?
I've walked the site, I've taken some photographs. I think that they're correct, but I can't be 100% accurate. But they have provided a topographic survey, and so they're using that information that's on that survey plan to generate these elevations. And it was prepared by a surveyor.
Okay, so it's been surveyed? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Any further questions from council on this one? Yeah, I think we've exhausted the discussion at this point. Council has seen the letters, the responses that we have had. We've also seen this petition that's been dropped on our desk today. It was an important aspect of what we discussed at committee to notify the neighboring property owners, and we have gotten that feedback. So this is for recommendation 2 in its entirety. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that's defeated. So we can call Ms. Lutz back in. We're going to have a public question and answer period at the end. And at that point, any questions about this can be asked then. Can somebody call Alice?
Thank you. So we're at item 10.4, airport building lease. Olson Electric, pages 118 to 133. Could I have a motion to receive the report? Moved and seconded. And I better find it. So is Director, thank you, Director Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, yeah, the district owns a building on the airport property. It has been vacant for a number of years, since the last tenant left. Since then, the district has put a...
Excuse me. Could I ask the people in the audience to take their comments outside? Thank you. Thank you.
So since then, the district issued an expression of interest to see if there was anyone who was interested in leasing that property. The proponent that came forward that we would like to work with is Olson Electric. They want to set up basically a solar panel display showroom for their operations and lease the property at $2,800 a month. And we've attached the lease here, and we're seeking council's endorsement to proceed with signing this lease with Olson Electric.
Very good, thank you. Any comments or questions? Oh. Okay, we have moved and second. Recommendation number 2, a seconder. Thank you. Comments or questions around the motion or the report? Yes, Councillor Mueller.
When I was reading through this, I was just left with the thought that this is not an airport-related use. So I'm just curious about that aspect of it. I know we weren't absolutely clear in our policy in terms of what could be entertained, but I'm just curious about staff's opinion on that.
Certainly from the legal perspective, as long as the money, any interest or revenue earned from these properties are returned back into the airport, it's certainly allowed to be done. As far as the expressions of interest that came forward, this was the best one that we received as far as what they were proposing. So though it's not necessarily airport related, it appeared to be a good use of this property.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Thank you. Reports from councillors. I'll start with Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've attended a number of meetings over the last couple of weeks since our last council meeting. As an alternate director with the SCRD, I attended the Infrastructure Committee meeting, some board meetings, and the Planning Development Committee meeting. On behalf of the District of Sechelt, I went to the Arts Council reception. That's the banners that you see along Dolphin Street. I went to the Town of Gibson Water meeting, went to the East Porpoise Bay Community Association Annual General Meeting, also attended the Davis Bay Community Association Annual General Meeting. Spent several afternoons in Finance Committee going over the budget, and I think we've got that pretty close to being wrapped up. Also attended the announcement on the abandoned vessels for Porpoise Bay, and so it was good to see $70,000 come in to start some work there. And then there was several meetings with the health minister regarding the trellis, and of course with our MLA at the same time. And I guess I want to apologize to the community associations. I missed the meeting last night. It wasn't in my calendar. So my apologies. I'll try and get it in the calendar next time. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Councillor Seegers.
Thank you. Along with a number of the other councillors, I also attended that meeting in Gibsons on it was a water information session put on by the town of Gibsons. At the request of the mayor, I met with one of the developers in the community who's looking to bring a project forward. I attended the Gibsons Chamber of Commerce AGM. Mayor Josie Osborne from Tofino was the keynote address speaker. And one of the comments she made was that although they have a lot of tourism in Tofino, they say community members come first, so they don't call themselves a tourist town, but a town with tourism. And then, along again with a number of the other councillors, we attended a meeting with Minister Dix, and also the public meeting in the evening around healthcare. And I attended the Neighborhood Association Leaders meeting last night. And I just wanted to mention a couple of upcoming events. Sechelt Chamber has a meetup happening tomorrow, actually, at Sechelt Signs. And then on Friday is the Trail Avenue rezoning presentation at Seaside Center. And we're looking again for community input. We had great feedback last time. The proponent, the designer, Wen Wei, has come back with a proposal that he hopes incorporates the community's concerns and questions. So we're looking for feedback. That's on Friday evening at the Seaside Center. Thank you. That's my report.
Thank you. Councillor Mueller.
Yes, thank you. It's good to know my mic's already on and I didn't ever turn it off, so free to speak. Like the other members of council, I've been mostly focused on the budget, and then of course when something large that has kind of been off our table for a while, like SSC comes along, there's a lot of additional work that comes with that to get back up to speed. So those are the things that have been eating up a lot of my time. Also did meet with a developer about a potential project just to get initial feedback around some of our planning policies. And I of course, through the regular work as planning chair, I meet with our director of planning, Ms. Corbett. I also, like Councillor Wright, I just wanted to offer my apologies to community associations. There was a meeting held last night, and I guess the message didn't get through to a few of us, and so we weren't there. But of course, your work is very important, and we look forward to the next one. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Shanks.
Thank you very much. I too attended the Gibsons Water Workshop, and it's most informative. I'm not sure if some of that information is private or not, but interesting with them being or having aquifers within their boundary and what their studies have indicated and what it means for them in the long term. So that was a very interesting meeting. Attended the FCED meeting last week, and last night I attended the Neighborhood Association meeting. 3 of us did attend that meeting. It started out a little rough, but the evening wasn't lost, and we came out with some positive input for moving that relationship forward. And that meeting's coming up in 2 or 3 months. And thanks very much for the staff that were able to attend that. I think you saved the evening.
Thank you. Councillor Inkster.
Thanks. I will also reference the water meeting that we had with the town of Gibsons because maybe they have a partial solution to some of the mid-coast issues regarding water in terms of the proposal that they discussed with us, and I'm sure their community will be very interested in that particular idea as it goes forward, although it has a financial component, but it may relieve the Central Coast, and I'm sure some of the questions we've asked on the Central Coast about who's using the water, for what reason, and in what level of need they're using it. So we'll see how that rolls out and how that comes to fruition. I also went to a poverty presentation at Roberts Creek Hall last week, And I know that one other council member was there, and we listened to a number of people that are interested in poverty, but also are affected by it. And I think some of the solutions and/or ideas put forward, which will go, I think, to the federal government, always talks about, we always talk about housing and the portion of your income that goes to housing. So if you can lower that particular portion, then you increase the levels of poverty. But also, we're always looking at wages on the Sunshine Coast in terms of how that helps with the rising housing and living costs up here. So the rising of wages in order to deal with that. And we also know, do know there's some provincial legislation that's coming forward to deal with that, that's implemented slowly, but it was really important, I think, for any of us that could be there to go and listen to some ideas about how we can reduce the levels of poverty in our community. I should also mention the meeting that we had with the health minister, and which then became a public meeting later on, and I hope the community knows that a number of council members were at that meeting as well and presented similar concerns to members of the community that was presented at other meetings around the time of the health minister's smaller meetings, and then at the community meeting that happened at Legion. So just to let the community know that the council does their best to represent those health and education provincial concerns when we get the opportunity with ministry staff. Neighborhood meeting last evening, I believe it was as was indicated, a few of us were able to make it. I don't know why it fell off our calendar, but something happened there. But it was good to hear from a number of groups. There will be another opportunity in, I believe, 2 months. I believe it's on the 21st of July, I think it is. So 2 or 3 months for council to meet with the neighborhood groups. And it would be good to see them have a larger turnout as well. Maybe they were all represented, but just the numbers, I wasn't sure, in order for them to represent their community, individuals, smaller community concerns to the DOS. And that's my report on council. Thank you.
Could you give your RD report also?
I can do that as well. The budget, as was mentioned by Councillor Wright, is finishing up. It's an increase that looks to be a little bit larger percentage-wise, although on smaller numbers, a smaller final number than we are considering at the District of Sechelt. It was a difficult budget in terms of looking at ways to deal with that budget because of the fact that there's a number of groups voting on services to individual areas. Those that are unfamiliar with the regional district, I think there was a presentation a couple weeks ago in order to see how certain areas are taxed differently for different levels of service from the regional district. And so Gibson's, based on the services that they prescribe from the regional district, is a slightly lower tax amount. The other thing I just wanted to mention is the water issue, as has been reported in the media, is still a discussion point with the District of Sechelt and the regional district, and in terms of finding a plan that includes more available water that's acceptable to the Council of Sechelt representing the citizens, to look for more storage capacity moving forward. So it appears to be our stand anyway at an impasse right now. So we'll see how that goes going forward. Good luck to those that now have to carry that particular issue forward. And I also just wanted to mention that a couple weeks ago, transits is a budget that's a little larger than I had hoped at the regional district, one that we have to consider, but it's a way to relieve the congestion on the roads and allow more people to get around. So it's a difficult budget to manage at that level. Thank you.
Thank you. And I too attended most of the meetings as mentioned. I did miss the Community Association one. I have made a commitment to spend Tuesdays with my granddaughter in New Westminster. So that's where I was for this particular meeting, but I hope to attend the one in July. So we'll move on now to items, our council correspondence, 12.1, for receipt, please. Moved and seconded. Anything you want to pull out and discuss? I'm liking the format with the information given to what the outcomes are and how they're being dealt with. It's most helpful. Seeing no questions, all those in favor of receipt? Thank you. And next is the RCMP monthly statistics, 12.2. Motion to receive. Moved and seconded. Comments? All those in favor? Thank you. In the Sechelt Visitor Center, February 2018 stats. I'm sorry? Oh, yes, please. The February RCMP stats, 12.3. Motion to receive. All those in favor? Thank you. Sechelt Visitors, 12.4. Motion to receive. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any comments or questions around those? That's good. Have a motion to adjourn. Thank you. I will, yeah. So.